I am so excited about our conversation. You and I have known each other for a pretty long time, my friend. It's been almost 20 years, if you can believe it. So I love your journey. I love your story, and I really love the leadership experiences that you've had in your career, even more recently, in such a critical time. But I don't want to divulge all that. I want you to share that with the listeners today. So if you don't mind, before we jump into your leadership lessons and some of those specifics, share for the listeners and viewers, what's been your career journey up to this point?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. I appreciate the time today. This is going to be fun. I think a lot of people feel that their journey has been very strange. And I think if I was describing it to myself, I might say that. But I think what ends up happening is the more people you talk to, the more people who have sort of different experiences and somewhat odd trajectories towards where they ended up. And maybe that's the norm, actually. So my background is I'm a family physician by training. So I went to medical school and did that and went through residency. So I'm not somebody who's in business because I finished medical school and then never practiced. So I went through medical training, residency, practiced for a few years, and knew that I wanted a more diverse career than just seeing patients over time. And seeing patients all the time is great. Just for me, it wasn't going to be a perfect fit over my career. So a few years after practice, I decided to get my MBA. A lot of doctors who get their MBA do it for the primary reason of going into leadership in a hospital setting. And that was actually not my focus. Right. It was very much an entrepreneurial, study the things I knew nothing about, finance, accounting, all the things that you would learn nothing about in medical school or residency. So for me, the MBA was a really transformational degree. It was not simply sort of moving to the next step. It was really a different set of things entirely. I'd never had a marketing class. I'd never had a marketing job. Almost every class in med school, maybe with the exception of service ops, had nothing to almost do with what I'd done before. So following the MBA, I took a little bit of a parallel dual career path. I did continue to see patients, but on a limited basis, because I wanted that in my background and didn't know exactly what I was going to do with clinical medicine. But I also started working in private equity and small venture capital, maybe like angel fund work, sort of doing scientific advising to investment groups about various technology businesses that I could inform them about the business, and then they would make the good business decisions. And did that for a little while. And eventually that evolved into a more formal role as the leader of an investment group who made a number of investments into small technology companies. Over to the other parallel, I was still seeing patients on a part-time basis. So I really had two careers for a good long while.
Wow.
Which may be the most odd part of this story. That's a little bit unusual to be able to pull that off. Clinical medicine sort of allows it because you can do something a couple days a week and not have anybody sort of snarl and say, wait a minute, what are you doing here? Then COVID hit. I fast forwarded a couple decades there, but then COVID hit, and the practice that I was the owner of and that I was running in Decatur, Georgia, took a very big hit financially, as a lot of small primary care practices did. We lost about 60% of our revenue short term. So we had to do some restructuring, and two things collided in life, as they often do in sort of this moment for my career and for me personally. One was the realization that we needed to cut back on a provider. I was the owner and I was a provider, so there's an obvious candidate for the cutback. When simultaneously a biotech job sort of crossed my radar as the leader of a small, albeit exciting, small biotech company that was doing vaccine development that I had been involved with because of the investment parallel. So those two things collided in the spring of 2020, right in the middle of the worst of the pandemic. Atlanta was shut down. Practice was struggling. We were trying to see patients virtually and getting up to speed on that, on telemedicine. And so I took a virtual job as the CEO of a small biotech company, actually based outside of Atlanta up in Michigan, called Blue Willow Biologics, where I'm the CEO now, and continued to be a business supporter of the practice and chief cheerleader and advisor when my advice was wise to the people who were actually doing all the work at the practice. But kudos to them, they kept that business alive and now it's thriving again. And I have a new role as a CEO and I've been in it for about 2 years. So I really came into an operational business role in a very serendipitous way. I had this business background that I was almost using as a consultant at the same time that medicine took this big hit. And then the consulting became an operational job, and here we are. So on a daily basis now, I'm the full-time CEO. And then I spend some of my time, but frankly, not a lot of my time, helping the practice when it needs my help. But fortunately, we have tremendous people there who need my help less and less every day. So they call me when they need me, but operationally now, in terms of my operations every day, I'm the CEO of a biotech company and have been for the last couple of years.